Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it is your boy Shaun Q, my partner, like always.
Jay Roman.
Together we are OSP, and we're gonna get into some real shit in this episode, baby. Woo! Y'all
I
ain't
mean,
ready?
your eyes are already red, so I
Yeah.
know
Well,
we've had. So this is a serious conversation we're having here.
you make it sound like we're talking about smoking. Like what, sir? Don't put my
I know.
don't touch my vanity, Jay Roman. Like, listen, you hurt me. All right, my ego will not be diminished by this. We're gonna get into some real shit. We are actually so you know what? I want to get into what's popping, but just to give you an idea of what the episode's about, thanks to the advancement of technology and all the knowledge being at our disposal these days, it's one of the reasons why our current society is more informed and aware of something as important as mental awareness, mental health, and mental illness. Last month was May. It was Mental Health Awareness Month, but we wanted to extend the conversation to make sure that we're not only looking out for each other, because me and Jay Roman, we check on each other all the time. Yo, man, how you feeling? What you need? I'm good. Can I help? You all right? You broken? How can I help fix you? How can I help
Whose
you fix?
ass needs a
Right?
whooping?
Right? Who trying to fuck up, man? You get enough sleep? You getting your vitamin D? Like what you need, man? I got you. So we want to extend it to the OSP fam. We want to get into the conversation of mental health. And for that, we're going to bring in our sister, a professional on the subject. We're going to bring in Valoria Jones. But first, we want to get into what's popping. Do you know what today is, Jay Roman?
Do you know what today is?
It ain't our anniversary. It's not.
It is or would have been Tupac's 50th birthday.
It would have been the birth. I mean, it's his birthday. It would have been his 50th of my favorite rapper of all time, Tupac Shakur. And
Amaru,
I,
Amaru.
right, I can't imagine what the world would be like right now. Tupac was still here.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has theories, and we talked about the span of his 7-year career and the impact he made on the world. I can't imagine if he had lived a long, healthy, thriving, fruitful life. When you
If he
see
would have
people,
made it to 30, it would have been a game changer.
you see people like 50 Cent and what he's done. You see people like Snoop and how long he's been in the game. You see a lot of cats. You see people like Eminem, and you see these cats, Dr. Dre, LL Cool J, Ice Cube, who have had long careers, who have done so many different things that you can't imagine. Like what would Tupac have done? We don't know. And not only was he taken away from us too soon, but he actually ties in. His death actually ties in with the episode because I don't think Tupac was in the best mental health towards the end of his life. The dude, he felt this looming of death around him. He
Mm-hmm.
had a me against the world. Everybody's out to get me.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck you, I'm gonna get you before you get me. That mentality, and that's I mean that's not the best mental health or mental mind state to be in. As much as
Yeah.
people would like to post and be like, yeah, man, I'm thug life like Tupac, like fuck everybody, I'm gonna get mine. That's not a way to live. That's not that's not the recipe to a long, healthy life.
Yeah.
So as much as we miss him, we just wonder what life would have been like if he had, been able to stick around. It would have been dope. We don't know. We we just don't know. The way Jamie Foxx said it on that episode of Black Bush with Dave Chappelle. He was anyway.
We never will. We
Yeah,
never
we'll
will.
never know. We can only assume. So on that note, let us bring in Valoria to chop it up with us because we noticed a couple of things. We noticed we're two guys. It's the two of us, and we don't have a lot of female listeners. We appreciate the ones we do have, and we understand, and we've been told by many of our OSP fans, and they love it when we get a female's perspective. So I feel like even though we're talking about mental health, we need to talk to a professional, and we absolutely need a woman's perspective on this. So let's get her in here, Jay Roman. Get her out the lobby. Tell
All
her,
right, give me a moment.
right? Have her get her water, or have the girl, have the secretary send in Valoria, please.
So I'm not sure they can still see you and me, but here she comes. I know they can hear us.
Yeah, right. Have
All
them
right,
bring
so
her in.
she's coming in just a second here.
The OSP boys are ready for you now. Hey,
All right, let me change my camera thing. There we go. Now I see us all three.
how you doing? You're gonna sit at that angle for real.
Beautiful, beautiful angle, no matter what it is. So there you go.
Welcome to the show, my dear.
Hello, guys.
Say what's up to the OSP fan.
Hello, OSP audience and family. Nice to be talking with you guys today, and Hopefully it's a good time.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's always a good time. I don't think we had shitty times. I mean, not on this
No,
show. No,
no.
No,
no, nothing but
no.
good vibes only.
I
You
Good
might
mean,
threaten some people. I don't know.
right? So we were telling the fam that we wanted to get a professional opinion on the current state of mental health and mental illness and mental health awareness. We wanted to get a female's perspective. So you were checking a lot of boxes right now, lady. No pressure. But
I
you
know a
gotta,
lot. That's a lot.
yeah. I want to do this no
You
more.
are formally trained and educated in psychology in this kind of field and stuff like that, and you deal
I
with it
am.
currently. So,
Yes,
so,
my profession
so,
is a therapist. Yes.
Yeah.
so feel free to enlighten us with any kind of story that might come to mind. We don't want
Okay.
any names, of course. Keep
Of
the
course.
confidentiality, of course.
Yes.
But someone might hear and think, I think they were talking about me. But as long as there's no name, you'll be all right.
Yeah.
You'll be good. So the first thing we want to get into, like, there's obvious. We call ourselves OSP, old school perspective. We come from an older class, an older culture where we were taught certain things as men growing up.
Mhm,
Men don't cry.
mhm.
Keep it in, keep it to yourself. Just deal with that shit.
Yeah.
Stay with your chest, little ass nigga. We had to deal with all that stuff. So we
I
have
mean, just
learned.
that statement alone makes me feel like you got some things to process.
Yeah, right. So just off that, we weren't men's mental health, especially, was not a priority when we were growing up. It was the man would keep stuff in. Don't show emotion. That shows weakness. And we'll get into that and a lot of the core beliefs and where that comes from. But off the bat, because you were a therapist, what are some of the common fears and stereotypes about therapy that people have? Like, I know with men, it's like, yo, I'm not about to go tell somebody my problems. I'll just deal with it. That's a common misconception. People don't just deal with it. What are some other ones?
I mean, when you talk about fear, I would say a big one is just like judgment, like you're supposed to open up, you're supposed to talk about yourself. And so then it's just like, what is this going to bring out? Is the person really going to judge me? And then are they going to, I deal a lot with adolescents. So then are they going to tell people? Who are they going to tell? Understanding of confidentiality is a big issue. And then also just like, I think it's just people think that it's a weakness. Like if you can't deal with it yourself and you need someone else's help, like you need a professional's help, and that means that you're a weak person. And so I think those are a lot of the issues right now.
So how do you, especially dealing with children, how do you address some of those fears?
I mean, for me, I mean, dealing with children are a lot easier than dealing with adults, honestly,
Right.
because they're more malleable than adults. Adults are stressed, and adults are they're stubborn, a lot more stubborn than children. And so with the children, like you just become their friend, and then you go from there. A lot of times, like sometimes I feel like I talk to people about like it doesn't always have to be me that you talk to, but you should talk to someone.
Right.
And so like just not keeping it in, because I think that's where the first problem is. If you keep it in, and at some point it's going to come out at the wrong time. And so like you can't keep it in as much as you think you can.
Yeah, I wonder about that because I mean, I remember I must have been 7, maybe 8, and I remember my mom taking me to a therapist, and I never spoke to him, never said anything to him about an issue. He would ask me, "How's this? How's that?" And I would say, "Oh, it's fine," and I'd play with like a toy or something. Only went a few times, so I'm not sure what he ever maybe said to my mother and said, "Oh, this kid's fine" or whatever. But I've never seen a therapist since. So no particular reason.
I was actually
I'm a man, so whatever. But I don't know. I don't know what it is as a kid that maybe not want to speak to anybody, but as an adult, I haven't spoken to anybody either. But I don't know.
I was actually going to ask you both about that because, you asked me, like, what are the things hindering people seeing a therapist? I don't think, to my knowledge, neither one of you guys is seeing a therapist. So you tell me, like, why are you not seeing a therapist? Because I think therapy could help everyone. So tell me why you haven't done it.
So when I'm upset, I just break shit. so there's my therapy. I get really upset. I might like break something. I don't know.
That's really healthy.
I don't really break anything. I don't know. It's funny because Valoria actually brought up seeing a therapist or something like that. And I asked her, "Do you think I need one?" And she, without saying yes, kind of said yes. And it's not that I haven't seen one for any particular reason. I always used to say, oh, I'm so self-reflective. I think about these things. They're only going to tell me stuff I already know, and or I already know how to deal with. So maybe that's also why I don't deal with it right now. Also, it kind of costs some money that I don't have. So there's kind of that. Plus, I also like Shaun was saying before we let you in, we talk to each other, and I feel like I let myself out or express it. I express myself to enough people, including my wife and Shaun, and who knows, maybe my mom when I talk to her, that I don't really feel like I have anything really bottled in. And if I have something there, Beltria will actually say, yeah, right, you got plenty bottled in. But at some point, I let it out because I have to, because I feel it festering inside me. So I can't let it sit there forever. Sometimes I have to just let it calm down before I start talking it out. But it's just a matter of like, I have had times where I've put my elbow through a wall, and I've had times where I've driven really fast with really loud music and slammed my trunk closed for a long time. I didn't slam the trunk closed for a long time, but really fast for a long stretch of the highway, screaming whatever song at the top of my lungs, stuff like that. I don't know. I don't know if I will see a therapist anytime soon, but maybe.
The thing that I feel like, especially for people our age, that's really helpful is that like when you have children and they start to model the things that you do, it starts to show you just how unhealthy you are. Like, and so that's actually like, in therapy, therapists see other therapists. And so for me, having my son years ago and him being like, why are you always sad? Like, why do you always look sad? That made me start thinking to myself, am I always sad? What am I modeling for him? And do I want to be that person that he sees? And so I think that that's the thing. And also another thing is like, one thing you pointed out is like, you talk to your wife, you talk to your mom, you talk to Shaun, who's one of your best friends. But none of those people are in a like objective stranger, basically, who's just going to tell you how it is. And so like my friend, I was talking to her recently, and she's going through some stuff with her ex, and she didn't like what I had to say. And she was like, don't be my therapist, just be my friend and agree with me. Like you that's not going to help you grow. That's not going to help you change. And sometimes we do need to change.
Yeah, true.
I agree fully. I remember going to therapy as a kid. I remember it was the four of us kids went, and my mom took us to a therapist. And it was so bad because it was just an hour of us just shitting on each other. And we were snitching on each other. And the worst part about it was I was a smart kid. I'm not stupid. I observe a lot. And I realized after the first two sentences, I was like, I'm going to keep this to myself because I knew the repercussion. The repercussion was everything we said in therapy got taken advantage of after we left. We all still had to get in the same car. And off that, it was like, oh, so you don't think I feed you enough cereal, huh, motherfucker?
Oh, so you were in not just kids, but with your mom there?
No, we went and did a group therapy session, and she was there. So
hell no.
Yeah, now imagine.
Yeah,
and I was like, oh, this is going to end badly. And so I was like, okay, never go into that shit again. And everything we said that was supposed to be confidential, nah. It was basically she paid somebody for an hour for us to snitch on each other. And that's what it was. So I didn't like therapy till then. And then in the past 2 years, it took me being completely broken until I was forced to seek counseling and seek therapy. And I am so grateful for it because it's changed me as a person. It's changed my outlook on life. I've learned a lot about myself. I spent the last 2 years plus of my life. First, it was self-reflection, learning the type of person I was. Then it was learning about the people around me, learning about the toxic environment that I was in before, learning about the people who actually give a fuck about me. And all this came from talking to strangers. I talked to a counselor, I talked to a therapist. It's some of the thing you said about talking to a stranger absolutely helps because if you talk to the people who know you, for the most part, they're going to agree with your side. They're getting your side of the story. But I love that in my circle, and my circle does include the two of you. It includes Valtria. I love that there's that pushback. What I tell people all the time is, even though I am going to therapy and I am getting counseling, I love that I've surrounded myself now. I didn't have it before, but I've surrounded myself now with people who are going to tell me who I am. They're going to be honest with me. They're not. I don't surround myself with yes men. I love that there are people who like Valtria me and Vel will clap back to each other like, yeah, but have you looked at this? But have you flipped that side of the coin? And have you looked at this about yourself? I love that. And it has absolutely made me a better human being. And I
Yeah.
cannot wait to pass that to my kids. But if you had mentioned therapy to me 5 years ago, I'd be like, why? Same thing. It's a waste of money. I don't need one, somebody in my business. Two is just I'm paying somebody to listen. I could go to church for that. I don't even do that. So it was I wouldn't have believed it, but having gone through it and still going through it, it's absolutely beneficial. It
Yeah.
absolutely so I am pro therapy. I'm a fan now. I wasn't before. Now I'm absolutely a fan. So I get a lot of the benefits to it. But I also get why a lot of people don't want to.
Well, one thing I was gonna say is like you talked about just like paying someone to listen to you. If you feel like you're going to therapy and you're talking to someone for 45 minutes, because even though they say it's an hour, they cut you short so they can do their paperwork and whatnot. So if you're paying someone for 45 minutes and you feel like you just talked to a friend or you feel like you just talked to a wall, you're not getting what you're supposed to be getting.
Right.
And you
Good
should
point.
change your therapist.
That part, yeah.
Okay.
I say I agree. I know that therapy, because there's so many therapists out there, it is like you have to find the right one. Like I know a lot of complaints that people have had is like you'll have like a young black man who's going to see this 60-year-old white lady as a therapist. Not to say that she's not good at what she does, but she can't empathize with what he's going
Right.
through.
Right.
If you have different cultural backgrounds, if you have different religious beliefs, they're not going to fully understand what you're going through. And even though you're talking to a stranger, I've learned that they are kind of set. At the end of the day, therapists are still human beings.
Exactly.
So it's not like, I think that one of the common misconceptions is, oh, well, this person went to school, so they think they know more than me, so they have all the answers. No, it's just somebody who's used to listening to somebody's problems.
Yes.
I made a joke the other day at the bar because I've been bartending 20 years. And I was talking to this girl who's a hairstylist. And I was like, so our jobs are similar. We listen to people's problems all day. And I was like, and it was a bit sexist of me, but I stand by it. I was like, because more women are empathetic than men, a lot of women, especially hairstylists, will absorb that. They will absorb those emotions and those feelings and what that person's going through. And it almost over time becomes part of their character. Whereas most men, our beliefs are either forgive it or forget it, get over it. Right? Either all right, let me fix it or forget it.
Yes.
If I can't fix your problem, then I'm gonna just forget it. Whatever. I don't give a shit. So it'll be like, yo, man, I'm sorry about what happened. So you drinking this Jack and Coke or what? Whereas a lot of women is like, listen, so how can we fix this? How can we get this dude? What do we do, bro? You know what I mean?
So I stand right there with you. If you think that's a sexist remark, oh well. I mean, I think that's actually very true, and I see nothing wrong with that. It's a physiological difference between men and women, and I love it. My wife talks more than I do. She's more emotional than I am, and she helps me bring out mine when I need to. You know what I mean? I'm not talking about crying and all that because I don't cry a lot these days, but I've had my extra fair share of lots of crying in my life. All right, there ain't nothing wrong with that at all. As a man, to let it out, there's nothing wrong with that. I've had times where we're talking on the damn couch for 3 days, crying in the freaking pillow like a little bitch, you know, all the way
wait, let me check you though. Like, why is crying like a little bitch though? Like, why do you need to go there? Like, really?
And see, that's part of the point, because that's part of the point. Like, that's the way I used to think. You know what I mean, like, I'm crying like a little bitch over here, you know. So I wouldn't think that now, because I've gone through it multiple times where I've cried where I feel like multiple days, and I definitely didn't feel like I was being a little bitch. You know, the next time it happens, like, it's more like, what am I doing with this? And I'm bringing myself to tears over like my own actions and stuff like that. So a couple of times I definitely should have seen therapists that I didn't. And again, I've let it out while I'm driving, at home, all that stuff. As a young person, as a kid, as a teenager, as a 20-year-old, as a 30-year-old, as a 40-year-old, I've cried every damn decade now for 4 decades. Yeah, going on 5 decades. You know what I mean? So, you know what I mean? It ain't nothing to it for me. I come from a family where my dad cries all the time, and we know this. And it's just, he's an emotional person like that. He gets emotional over family and stuff like that. So we get emotional over very similar things in that way. So I've never been afraid to cry because I saw my dad do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he cries over things that are very important to him, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay, you know. And so I've never had an issue with it. And I've never had a problem with someone else crying in front of me. Yeah, it's gonna make you uncomfortable. But you know what? You gotta just kind of read what's going on and either give a hug or stand back, depending on what the situation is.
See, but I feel like one thing that has to change about our society is like that crying makes people uncomfortable. Like it's just an expression of an emotion. We have so
Yes.
many emotions and we have so many expressions of those emotions. So why is crying the one trigger that people are just like, oh, what do I do with that? You know, like we have expression of happiness, we have
Yeah.
expression of anger, but crying is the one that gets people. And I literally don't even understand that.
Yeah.
I think it's
So-
definitely more it's more of a male thing. Like I think I saw my dad cry once my whole life. I've seen him cry one time.
Yeah.
And I remember that time. I'll never forget it because it was the fucking only time. But
Yeah.
I want to say in between like 1995 and 2008, 2019, I cried maybe a total realistically 3 times. And I felt bad because as a parent, I would tell my daughter, like I'd be like, "What? Stop crying. Crying doesn't solve anything. Crying is not going to get it's not going to get it fixed. Crying is not going to solve anything. Stop crying." And I feel bad now looking back, having gone through therapy, being like, "Oh my God, that was the worst thing I could have told her." I used to make her feel like it wasn't okay to cry when it is absolutely okay to cry. But I feel like there are, especially for men, it's seen as more of a weakness, not realizing like to people who aren't angry people, when you get mad, you start punching shit in public. That's a
Yep.
fucking weakness.
That's a
That's
weakness.
display strength. That's actually a weakness. So we've been conditioned for years to be like, "Nah, man, do some push-ups or break some shit." They're both weaknesses. It's just they've been seen as different because you see a man crying, it's like, oh, he broke down, he can't handle his body, he's not hoking up. But if he breaks some shit, you're like, oh man, that dude's upset. No, they're both weaknesses. It's just we've been conditioned to see them as not the same. They're both emotions.
One thing you just said, like he can't handle his body, like you just that's the key right there is the strength comes in being able to handle yourself. And so whatever the emotion is, the strength is, can you handle that? Can you handle whatever's going through your body, and can you calm yourself down? So whether you're angry, whether you're anxious, whether you're overly excited, whether you're sad, whatever it is, how do you control yourself?
Yeah.
Shows the strength that you have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
I was gonna say let's get maybe into like the second part of it, especially as men talking about mental health in that way. And for people who understand why we keep saying it, we're doing the play on words, mental health. You know what I mean? So a big part of it is, we brought up the fact that Tupac would have turned 50 today. He would be 50 years old right now, as of today. The leading cause of, not leading cause, but one of the leading causes of death for men in our age range, 40 to 54, 55, 56 and up, is suicide. You know what I mean? It's a huge cause of death. The 10th leading right now in the US. And men's rates of like 44 to 54, it's like 3.54 times higher than women. And so I've thought about this for a while because we talked about, was it last year? Or was actually, I guess it was technically 2019, where my friend called me in a really bad state of mind. And I thought for sure he was going to kill himself because he over the years said many times, if it wasn't for my children, I would have put a shotgun in my mouth a long time ago. He told me this a few times. He told me more than me this. So when it came down to that phone call, I could tell he was drunk. I could tell he was just going. He was crying. I could tell he was going through it. And then he just never really contacted me back. He has now passed away. He didn't technically kill himself in the way that, he said he always would, but he ended up making himself deteriorate to where he killed himself in a different way. So, and he was in his 50s. He was around 55, something like that, and he came from, his family loved him. Yeah, he went through a bad divorce. He went through an ugly divorce. They kind of feuded here and there over the years, whatever. But his kids and his family and everyone who, from the funeral, granted, you always say the best stuff at the funeral, it seems like they all loved him. Like, especially his kids. I know his kids loved him. And I was waiting for the day where he was like, "Go Brooklyn," because every time from the first time he even knew I was having a child to hearing her name and all that, he was like, "I can't wait till she plays softball." And he's like, "I'm go Brooklyn." He had this big raspy voice and he was so boisterous. And I always was looking forward to that. So I still think of it like, oh, when I put my girl in something, I think of him saying that. But he had such severe depression that he never sought help for. And he had a church. He had a church where people at the church loved him, knew him. He had a family and he spoke to them, but we couldn't seem to get him to a place to where he wouldn't think about killing himself.
Yeah.
Because he just always wanted to, and it really, really sucks. So I don't know what it is about that generation right now that makes them want to kill themselves more than before, because the rate is also in the last 20 years up by like 25-30% or something like that. It's crazy. And for men, it's like that middle age is where I don't know what it is. Maybe we feel like we should have been more than we are. Maybe we're not getting enough. Maybe it's a generation that's intimidated by others getting more than they have. I don't know what it is. I haven't looked at our rates compared to like baby boomers and stuff like that, but it seems like it's at a really alarming rate. You know
Well,
what I
my
mean?
understanding is is that as far as for males are concerned, that age range of like middle age is across different, decades and generations, it's pretty constant. And I mean, if you just look at if you look at your lives and what's expected of you as men, that's when the most pressure comes on, because that's when, like, if you have a family, you're expected to provide for that family. If you don't have a family, then you're wondering, like, am I a failure? Am I in the right, all of those pressures. And then on top of it, you were expected to handle it all by yourself. Whereas women, like, it's more socially acceptable for women to rely on each other, to go to each other, to cry. And so it's just years and it's decades of things on your shoulders with no release. And at some point it gets to be too much for some people, and so I think that that's really just one of the things, is just like the fact that you don't feel like you have that village that women talk about. Like, men don't have that village that women talk about, that women have. And so then it's like, what am I supposed to do? Well, I guess life would just be better if I'm not here.
Yeah, we think we're islands. That's for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to put the statistical aspect on that. I feel like most things that we discuss now, it has a lot to do with awareness. After the Great Depression, tons of people, and mostly men, were killing themselves. But
Yes.
if it wasn't a big dramatic display like jumping off a building, putting a gun in your mouth, or hanging yourself, it wasn't considered suicide. They didn't have access to the drugs that people have access to today. They didn't have access to the ways to drink themselves to death the same way people do now. And it was to say somebody committed suicide was considered shameful.
Right.
Because then you would have to admit that man gave up, that man quit, he was weak. So tons of people would lie about it. But now that there's much more awareness about it, we can say this many people have said this guy was feeling like this, and this is what happened. Here's why he passed. I feel like that's one of the reasons why the numbers are up. It's definitely an awareness thing. I think it's also because we are noticing now, we are trying to notice people's mental state before they pass. And that ties into a lot of it. It's more like, it's not like, well, he seemed like a great guy. The people closest to him are like, no, he was going through some shit and he never got help for it. So we can't rule out suicide. He wasn't just in a random car accident. It makes more sense now because we're more aware of it. But I feel like because now we're more aware of it, our youth today, because of the knowledge they have at their disposal, they are much more aware of their mental health than we were older. The biggest problem we're having now is not converting, but explaining and convincing people from our age rank and older that these kids are woke, man. These kids know how to stay healthy. They know what's okay, what's not okay. We know what's okay and what's not okay. We just have to adjust. We have to adapt. We have to evolve, or we will evaporate.
Yes.
And so getting to that, we're going to address that with the kids, but I want to take a commercial real quick. Let's take a quick break. Everybody take a water break. We're going to be right back. Keep your eyes open. Keep your ears open. That lady freaks me out every time. We are back. Thank you for joining us. We are joined by Valoria Jones, our sister, our friend, our love, and she is helping us deal with this mental health episode. I'm gonna keep saying it like that so y'all get the pun.
Mental health.
There you go. And we'll get right back into what we're talking about. We were talking about the question that came up is, how do we pass on proper mental health and self-care techniques to our kids? Because we all have kids. Yeah. And as much as the knowledge is out there, as parents, we have to encourage our kids to be aware of their mental state, to have, I mean, I love self-care Sundays, stuff they have to help people be aware of their mental health and mental stability. How do we as older parents, we as older parents, you not so much, how do we pass that
I'm
down?
old. So
Well, I mean, oh,
well,
go
I was
ahead,
gonna
go
say,
ahead.
one thing I think is important is just understanding that there is a such thing as emotional intelligence. And so we talk about our intellect so much, but we have to understand that our emotional intelligence is going to get us further than our intellect will at some point. Because, like, okay, let's take, Shaun, for example. Your intellect is going to get you so far, but then your emotional intelligence, how well you understand people and how well you're able to read people will help you get further in your life and your career. And so, like, you're very good at reading people, you're a funny guy, you're sociable, whatnot. And so that is a somewhat like emotional intelligence that you have, the fact that you're able to read people and give people what they are looking for from you. And so therefore that's helped you in your career, in your life, as far as like getting along with people. And so teaching that to our children, that there's like and making sure that that's an important aspect of it is very important. Also, I think that like we can incorporate little things into their like daily routines, as far as like mindfulness or deep breathing, those sort of things that will just become like second nature to them. So like my daughter, like my daughter's, she's 5, so she's doing sight words right now. And so she gets frustrated with herself. Are you hearing the sound?
Time out. What the hell is
Yes.
that?
I wonder if it records that. So we apologize, OSP fam out there, for our weird cutoff right there. There's some kind of ghost in one of the machines here. We keep hearing somebody else on the line, but we're all on one line, so we don't know what's going on.
We're talking about mental health, and some dead guy in one of our 3 rooms is like, finally, speak on it.
So please excuse the interruption. Goodness gracious. So we were getting into passing on mental health awareness to our kids. Mental how'd you call it? What's that?
Well, she was talking about emotional intelligence.
Emotional intelligence. That's what it was.
And I was talking about just being able to incorporate little things into their daily lives that to them will become just like normal. So like whether it's like deep breathing or mindfulness, which mindfulness is just a fancy way of saying like being present, basically, like being aware of what's in the room, being aware of how you're feeling, incorporating that into their lifestyle so that they don't even think twice about it. It's just who they are. So like an example is like my daughter, she's 5 and she's working on sight words and she's not great at it. And so she gets frustrated. And so when she gets frustrated, she'll start crying. And then I've taught her, to take a break and to breathe. And so now on her own, she's just like, Mama, can I have a break so I can calm down? And then I'll be better when I come back. And I'm like, yes, take your break, you little queen, and come back when you're ready. And there's nothing wrong with that. Take your break, come back when you're ready. Let's move on,
Jay wanted to get into how we have to, it's been hard for just, Black and brown people in general, just our mental awareness and our mental health has just been, I don't know, stymied for years. So we were training and trying to help grow these young Black men in this society. And it's not an easy task by any means. And so mental health for these kids is going to be, I want to say, some other level shit. None of us went through the Great Depression. We haven't lived through we lived through a couple wars, but not like
we didn't live through the major wars, the civil rights movement, and things that are very physically and emotionally taxing to have to toughen up, I guess you could say, in those ways.
Right.
I mean?
But our kids now have gone through a pandemic, and this pandemic has changed everybody.
Yeah.
Some for the better, some for the worse, but they've had to live with this, and this has had to make either a lot of people weaker and a lot of people stronger. And all we can do is hope that we are helping make our kids stronger after surviving this. And I'm including like my nephew. My nephew's 22 years old, and so we're talking about kids in this generation who've had to deal with this pandemic. It's going to be rough to bounce back. As we speak, today's June 15th. Today they pulled the mask mandate in California. I was out in the street 16th. When I was leaving work.
It's the 16th, by the way.
The 16th. It happened yesterday. I was still out there. I've been at work every day. Whatever, man.
I know
what day it is, man.
You're working a lot. I know.
Yeah.
You're the man right now with that.
I see people are out in the streets in full effect, and everything's not back to normal. Like it's not just like COVID left and people forgot that they've been shut down and locked in their houses for months, for a year. It's going to be a hard adjustment. So keeping people aware, especially our kids, aware of their mental health and making sure that they're just mentally okay is
Yeah.
the thing. Like I know my son has always been big on, like, he lives in a world that nobody else lives in.
Nice.
And Valoria has helped me become on board with that, because I used to be like, kid, come on, man, join the conversation. And I was almost attacking his mindfulness, but I would get to the point where I'd let him be like, yo, let him explore that world that he lives in. It's not taken away from anything. He's in his own imagination, whereas my
Yeah.
daughter's very sociable. And there'd be times where he would be in the corner playing with one block for a good
Yes.
30 minutes. And he was content. He's happy. It does not matter. He's cool.
Can
Him and
I
that
just
block.
tell you that I love that about him? Like I used to just like watch him and like literally like I remember like I have this memory of him just like being over by a gate and just like playing with the gate. And I was like, that boy he's just happy in his world, and
Yeah.
let him be happy in his world.
Yeah, loving it. We when we were kids, we were taught, like, we would get checked on stuff like that. We weren't allowed as much. I mean, I know I wasn't. I can speak for me and partially for Jay. We weren't really allowed to explore stuff like that. Like if my parents saw me playing with the gate for 30 minutes, like, yo, stop playing with the gate. Were you stupid? Stop it. And they would like
Yeah.
hinder my creativity. And so
Mhm.
I've tried to get into the point now where, like, yo, let these kids be creative. Let them. I know Questlove he was doing a podcast and he was talking about how when he was a kid, it was like one of his teachers who told his parents, like, whatever instrument you want to give him, give it. Let this kid do whatever he wants. If he says, I'm going to take this up, let him do it, and he'll be good at it. And look at where that got him. They weren't trying to hinder his creativity. And I feel like when we do that, we are affecting our kids' mental state.
You know, I grew up in a house in a fatherless home, right? So there were multiple males in the house here and there. We didn't ever have a good male example. They were all wrecked in whatever way. I'm not saying my mom was also in the best of mental health, but my mom gave us that, that toughness, that thick skin we needed to, I guess, get through life, that they were taught that she had to have growing up. And so I always think about that kind of thing, the contrast. I've seen my mom cry maybe twice. That's a very bright light, but maybe twice, where I've seen my dad cry at least a dozen times, for whatever different reason. And so I always think about my mom being that tough person, but then I always feel like my mom needs therapy because she needs to let it out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always want to, like you're saying, guide my child into expressing herself. And we get to the point where she'll be screaming top of lungs. I'm like, look, you can cry, but you can't scream at the top of your lungs like it's bloody murder. They're going to call sirens. They're going to get people here to arrest us, thinking that we're trying to kill you or something. So you can't do that. But you can cry, because I don't want to hinder her expression of the frustration, if that's what it has to be. Because for some people, it takes the crying, get that emotion out, and then get on with whatever they're going with. They just have to get that part out. But the emotional awareness part is what we want her to become more adapted to understand how she's feeling, so she can let it out.
That's what I was going to say, is like, I think the important part is teaching them their emotions, because like, okay, crying is fine and letting your kid cry is fine. And that's like, we're talking about that a lot, but like what's more important is asking her, what is she experiencing right now? Like, is she experiencing frustration? Is she tired? Is she embarrassed? Because that's actually more important, is being able to know what you're experiencing so you could deal with that. That's actually like, when we talk about emotional intelligence, being able to label your emotions or being able to label what you're going through will take you so much further. Because so many people are just like, I don't know, I just need to, like, they just become the Hulk and they just need to let it out. Instead of just hulking out, like, if you could just figure out, like, okay, no, I'm really just embarrassed right now and I need to deal with that embarrassment. Like, I said something that I didn't mean to say, and instead of expressing that this way, maybe I can express it this way. Another thing I wanted to talk about real quick was, like, you talked about how our generation isn't dealing with a lot of the stuff that other generations dealt with, as far as like wars and whatnot. But we are, like, don't downplay what we are dealing with, because I think that's part of the problem, is like recognizing that we are going through something. Like, we're going through, as far as like Black and brown people, we're going through watching like our counterparts being killed in the streets. My son is growing up in a world where, like, I talked about this last time I was on the show, where he wants to be a police officer, but police officers are killing children who look like him. And, like, dealing with that, or, just dealing with the fact that, like, like men who look like our fathers are being killed in the street, and how do we deal with that on top of a pandemic, on top of being quarantined? That's a lot. And so it might not be like World War II. It's not like that, but it's a lot for our emotional capacity.
So as we're talking about mental health and mental awareness, I think it's dope that the TV shows and movies that we're watching now are displaying more men mainly going to therapy. Remember before it was like all the Italian joints, it was like The Departed, The Sopranos, famous Tony Soprano going to therapy, analyze this, analyze that. There was a lot of the Italian shows that would show these, these tough guys going into therapy, which was actually pretty dope for them to do. But outside of that, you didn't really see it a lot. Now you got, Captain America and the Winter Soldier, Jupiter's Legacy. This dude's talking to a criminal behind bars, like for some kind of therapy.
Canceled, yeah, but
there's that new show on HBO, In Treatment. It's just therapy is people are so much more open about therapy now, and now it's on mainstream media, and I like that because now they're making it okay. Letting people know it's okay to go to therapy. Mm-hmm. It's okay to talk to somebody, and we have a lot more entertainers and athletes speaking out and opening up about their mental health. Comments that he mentioned a while ago, like he's a believer in therapy. We have athletes like we mentioned in the last episode, Kyrie Irving. We have the female
Naomi Osaka.
We have what Naomi Osaka said. We talked about in the last episode.
LeBron James.
Yeah, LaMarcus Aldridge. A lot of people are saying, "Listen, man, I need to take care of my mental health. Mm-hmm. I need to make sure that I'm right and I am okay before I deal with you." Yeah. Which is a great thing to say. It's hard to say, but it's a great thing to say. I feel like people are saying it a lot more now than we ever did before.
Yeah,
a lot more than before, and it's becoming less attacked than it was before. Before, if somebody says, I just need a mental day to myself, I'm like, what, to get your thoughts together? Well, why don't you just deal with it? Why can't you handle it? Now it's like, yo, let this dude be him. Let him deal with his mental health. Let him get right so that he can come out and act right. I love that, and I hope it grows from here. I hope it's at the point where everybody's okay, just being open about their mental health. I'm not saying tell everybody your business, just to be like, yo, man, like I try to post something for Self-Care Sunday every Sunday. Just to be like, yo, just so you know, I'm dealing with this shit, but on this day, I'm trying to take care of me. I'm trying to get my head right. Mm-hmm. Because if you bottle that shit up, you are going to turn into a volcano, and eventually you're going to erupt, and you're going to erupt on the people closest to you.
Right.
Your loved ones, your friends, your family. They're going to have to feel that wrath because you couldn't take care of yourself.
Right.
You have to take care of yourself.
I'm going to add to that wrath. So part of the mental health of everybody really as well at this point is when you think about our reopenings and everything that we've been going through. You brought up last episode the sports and these people not acting right at the games because they've been locked up for however long, and now all of a sudden they think it's okay to spit on people. They think it's okay to throw stuff at people. So they think it's okay to, challenge a man who is 6'8", 215, solid to something. Like, that's just nuts.
Yeah.
Not only that, but there has now been already 2,900 cases of in-flight or passenger issues of them either fighting each other, but especially fighting the stewards, stewardesses, or I forget what to call it, flight attendants, fighting them, spitting on them, hitting them, getting dragged out, full on brawling. That right there is mental health issues right there. Because you've been bottled up and you thought it was okay to maybe get on a plane with all this anger and take it out on someone that's just asking you to do something like put a mask on. And that's their job because they're trying to protect themselves and you and everything. But you thought it was okay to then take this person by the hair, punch them up a few times, and then get banned probably for life from that airline. That was your lack of emotional awareness and how you were feeling that day. And just remembering, all you gotta do is be in this flight. All you gotta do is chill out. All you gotta do is be here, be present in this, and know that I'm not alone. They're not singling me out for this kind of thing. You know what I mean? It's kind of one of those crazy things that I didn't think about the connection from last week to this week or last episode. And all that is mental health right there. To think that you can do these things, okay, because you feel entitled to it. You got to check that stuff. You got to check yourself at some point. Like, wait, how am I feeling about this? I just came out of this situation, this long affair with the damn pandemic that's still technically going on. I'm finally getting myself to get some relaxation. And yet I let this happen to myself. I really hope these 2,900 cases of people, whoever it was, really ever reflected on this, either because they had to do because they were in jail, or because now they're kicked off flights and now they can't go anywhere. So now you made yourself stuck again. So I really hope that they're really kind of sitting back like, damn, I need to take better care of myself because I just went through this and I didn't deal with it on my own. I didn't deal with it in any way, and I'm letting it out. And like you just said, hurting people around me. I mean, that's a huge deal. People aren't making these connections sometimes. They really got to.
They're not. Really, I remember posting on Instagram when it was like, which version of me is going to come out of the pandemic? And it was like ripped up Thor and fat Thor. But overall, it was more of a like, what you're either going to come out of this a better person because you've learned a lot about yourself because you spent a lot of time with yourself, or you're going to come out of this and be what these people are considered pieces of shit. Because you're like, oh, finally I get freedom and I'm going to choose to act like an ass with it. It's not okay. People like you, would you have acted like this pre-COVID, before the pandemic? Would you have been acting like an ass on a plane like this? No, then you need to go back and reevaluate what you did with that time and how you can get some kind of help, because that shit is not okay at all.
Well, I also think that it points to how we are social beings, and I think that the pandemic and the quarantine really messed some people up in a way that they're not able to recognize just quite yet. And I'm hoping that these incidents do decline, especially like with, we were talking about the mass shootings and how frequently those are happening now. Like, I'm really hoping that like this is just people sort of just like breaking out, and we're going to start, like, society's going to start realizing like, okay, we have a true issue. And like you were pointing out the TV shows, and so like art imitates life imitates art. So I am hoping that it becomes like full circle and people just start recognizing like, okay, this is an issue, and what can I do about this to correct myself, to check myself. But I think that a large part of it is just the fact that we were isolated for so long that we forgot how to get along with other people. We forgot how to live amongst people, and we need to re-educate ourselves. And for those of us who don't know, like, check ourselves, or hopefully we got like someone in our lives who will check us and just be like, that's not cool.
It's social mannerisms. They did a study and they talked about how they've declined so much because, and that's led up to all these things. Social manner, people just don't remember how to act. Yeah. No one's out there to tell them, so that's
shout
a
out
huge
to the ghost
thing.
In the machine. Jay Roman, you have a what the shit?
I do. And it goes right in with what we got going on here. So we all know Shock G died. What was that? The day after DMX, right? Something like that. And that same week, regardless, same week as someone else I remember. So it recently came out, he died from an overdose of fentanyl, alcohol, I think coke, something like that. I forget exactly what it was. 3 very, very deadly drugs. Alcohol has killed tons of people. Fentanyl has killed now so many people that these companies are paying billions in settlements now because they push these drugs and are making these drugs. And he was in his 50s. He was in his mid 50s. I just wonder, like, why at this age is he still doing drugs like that? Why at this age? And granted, we know DMX has had his depression issues the whole time. We've known that. So that was unfortunately not as surprising as I think it could have been had we know he was clean for 20, 30 years, whatever, something like that. So a big part about it is someone had said that the way we are always on now, all right, makes it so that drug use today is not like it was before. All right. So there is no downtime now for celebrities. You know what I mean? So yeah, we think of Shock G, we're not thinking super celebrity, but I mean, he's still doing, little bits here and there, probably touring, he's still being the celebrity that he was back in the day. He's old school. He's kind of a pioneer in certain ways. You know what I mean? So as being a celebrity or an influencer, the way you have to cope now is unfortunately maybe doing a few more drugs, because you got to keep going.
No,
you got to keep trying to get that feeling. You got to, at least for some of them, and unfortunately way too many that have now passed at the age that we have been very concerned with. Because we're like, why are the people in their 50s right now passing away so much? And it's unfortunately that could be part of it. They feel too much obligation to keep up with what's going on because they want to be in social media. And now there's all these avenues that people are always kind of looking for them. So you got to really, and the drugs, of course, are stronger. Fentanyl only takes what, a millimeter to kill you, something like that, or milligram. I mean,
the drugs are definitely stronger, but Valoria has a different opinion.
Well, yeah, I definitely have a different opinion, and I think that our language is very powerful, and so I have to check you on 2 things. One, first thing, your language is so powerful, and when you're saying that the famous people have no choice basically but to do these drugs because of the chance for them, they have choices. We all have choices. I'm not going to deny the fact that they have a lot of demands on them, and like social media changes things, but they have choices and they're choosing to cope with the drugs instead of choosing a different method. And so people who are choosing different methods, like there are sober, artists out there who have gone down that path and decided like, I want to live for my kids, or I want to live for whatever it is, for the fame, for the money. I want to live, and so I'm not at all downplaying the demands and pressure it is of being a famous person and, being an entertainer in this day and age, but that's not the only choice. And secondly, as far as like our words are concerned, secondly, I want you to just be aware of like, with PC and how we're changing things, but like people do not commit suicide. People die by suicide, because by saying that they committed suicide, that's using the assumption that they were of sound mind when they did what they did. But the point is, it's like they weren't of sound mind. And so if like the person that you love dearly died by suicide, if that person was fully healthy, mentally, they wouldn't choose that route. And so there's a demon that they are battling, and the demon won. So they did not commit suicide, but they did die by suicide.
Oh, okay.
Nice. I like that.
I didn't know the new terminology. That's excellent. And see, that's why we got you on the show. Taught me a little something. I'll take all that. I had no idea that the terminology changed. And I know terminology changes over time and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But, that's good. I love that.
Dope. So speaking on mental health, we at OSP, we've decided we got to take the summer off. We've been going nonstop. We all have new ventures we're taking with our lives right now. People got promotions at work. We're doing big things. So we're going to take the summer off. We got to get our mind right so we can keep bringing you dope content, so we can keep bringing up dope conversations and talking about dope shit. So this will give you a chance over the next couple months to go catch up on some of the old episodes. We got over 50 episodes, people. That's a nice enough catalog for you to catch up. All right. So we're obviously we're gonna hit you on social media. We're still gonna be in touch. You can still hit us up at all of our avenues at any point in time. We're gonna be popping in, talking about stuff as it comes up. We're just taking a podcasting break for a couple months just to get our minds right. We got to do a self-care summer. That's basically what's going to happen. So we want to thank Valoria for sitting in with us and helping educate us on a lot of things and chopping up about a conversation that needs to be had in more households. So I hope this episode reaches a lot of people. If you listen to one episode for the rest of the summer, hopefully it's this one, because a lot of people, we got to check on each other, man. We got to check in. That's the thing, is I've been asking people closest to me. I'm like, hey, listen, just 3 quick questions. 1, are you happy? Have you been broken? What can I do to help? You know what I mean? Like, I just want to know how I can help. And if there's any way I can help, let me know. It could be something as simple as, hey, thanks for checking in on me. Just knowing that somebody cares whether or not you live or die. Just, hey, if you want to vent to somebody, I've got to the point now where I'm like, just so I'm clear on this before this goes any further, is this one of those things where you're going to vent to me, or is this one of the things where you're coming to me for a solution? Because I'm down either way.
Wait, can we really like frame this for all men? Like, men need to learn that. Like, all men need to learn that. Are you just venting, or do you need my help solving the problem?
Yeah.
Because we don't always want you to solve the problem.
There is absolutely a difference. And that should be the question. Like, hey, just because you're getting into this right now, you just want to vent, or you want me to solve it? Because I'm down. Either way, I'm down. But let me know right now, because if not, the natural instinct is to try to solve it. Fix it or forget about it. So we got to ask that question, fellas. If somebody comes to you like, yo, are you venting, or are we solving it? If you want to vent, listen, be that ear. Just vent. Just do the but actually listen. Don't just do the head nod and the yeah. I mean, well, she ain't shit. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Like, listen.
A couple things with that. When you're listening to someone who wants to vent or ask you stuff, put your damn phone down. All right, put your phone down. Put it in your pocket. Put it on silent. Don't even pick the damn thing up unless they tell you to pick it up. Let them speak. All right. Active and I active listening. Exactly. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of sites out there, everybody. Psych.com, Headspace, Talkspace, Calm, all that stuff. We saw all the commercials during the pandemic because they were promoting so much of the psychology apps. And now I don't see them anymore. So I think we need more of it than we did before. So please reach out to at least your local healthcare provider, because a lot of them have budgets in there for therapy. And I have Kaiser. In Kaiser, I can get therapy through my Kaiser, and it's paid for through a copay. I mean, at least use that. You know what I mean? So please, 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 especially if you're thinking about anything drastic, get to someone and speak on it to them. Please, a healthcare professional or something.
And one more thing I just want to say is like, because we talked about advice for the person who's listening or receiving it, but the person who's needs to unload, it would be wonderful also if you just gave the person a heads up, like I have something heavy that I need to release or to share. Are you ready to receive that? Because that gives a person, like, even if the person's busy, and if you give them that heads up, then they might actually be like, yes, I am ready. Let me put my phone down and give you that attention. Or, you know what, I'm not right now. I'm around my kids and they're screaming, but I can give you, I can give you that full attention in 30 minutes. Let me have 30 minutes. And so if you preface that, it just opens up for just clear communication.
Right. Don't be waiting until game 7 of the finals and it's like 3 minutes left. Now you want to vent about your fucking day. I'm sorry.
Okay, we're not going to end with that one.
Right? We're not. No. So we're taking our self-care summer. We want to thank Valoria for sitting in with us and educating us. We love you. We appreciate you. We will come back in the fall and we're going to come back hard. Some dope content. We got a lot of things in the works. So we will see you. I'm going to say, like always, I'm Shaun Q. Be smart.
J. Roman, we out.
Keep it old school.